Hello, everyone. This is week 3 of SEC1337, building a rad and robust security program. This week is probably going to be the most fun. I mean, I say this every week, but I love this because this is going to be about physical security and hacking physical and digital systems, because there is indeed a convergence that has happened over the past 15 years. There is no such thing as just the physical and the digital realms being separate. They're increasingly one. And as such, this is what makes things really difficult. So let me just kind of give you a little backstory. Yes, main point here, the takeaway. Physical security is hard. Because security in general is hard. The reason physical security is especially hard is because there are systems everywhere that emit digital exhaust. So not only do you have to protect the physical, but you also have to protect the digital. So if you think about, literally there's this device that Zach has. It just collects signals here, and it makes lots of noises. It makes all kind, like, you can look at all the RFID everywhere. There's digital exhausts everywhere, and it's anyone with a little device can pick it up, so it's not easy to protect against it. But like most things in security, our best hope here is this thing called defense in depth, which I talked about in week 1. And it's this idea of putting layers of security in place so that if one control fails, the entire system doesn't fail. So layered security. And this is going to be your best chance of having any kind of security posture around physical security. So, for example, have cameras, but what if your cameras fail? Then you still need badge readers, right? You still need authentication systems. You need to have cages, biometric, all the different things, like multiple layers to slow down the adversary, because you're not going to stop anyone with enough time and resources, but you can slow them down. That's the whole point. And then if you slow them down, you can make them want to go to easier targets and low-hanging fruit. Because again, there's no such thing as good security. There's various levels of insecurity. So that's the goal here. And let's talk about, now that we've kind of discussed overall what it is, the fun part of this. What kind of security systems and controls do we have at our disposal? Well, we've got some stuffs. This isn't an exhaustive list, but this is to give you a sense of what we can leverage right now. So physical security controls. Some basic stuff that everyone is aware of, like doors, right? Doors help close off your physical area. So doors are obvious, locks on doors. Then you've got, like safes, or like vaults, safes and vaults that protect valuables, using variety of cryptographic techniques to physically make it hard to get into the device. Beyond vaults, you've also got like badge readers, for authentication. So basically, like any kind of badge reader system to get into a door. You've also got, your biometric authenticators, so facial, fingerprint, but I'm just kidding, that's not a thing yet. Biometric authenticators, right? So that can be in conjunction, which is always good. When you have multiple layers of authentication, something something you have, something you are, that's going to be the best pillar, of the holy grail of authentication. So biometric authenticators, and then you've got, like I said, cages, which are just a physical way to protect things using the above. You've also got keypads, so like one-time passcodes, which are somewhat effective. Then you've also got, I'm going to show you Faraday cages. This is, for individuals, the single best thing you can do to protect yourself from the various types of attacks, especially RFID, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, any number of RFID. And then you kind of, after that, you got barbed wire, right? If you read the book by Stone about the NSA, I think it's called something Official Record. He talks about the NSA's security or strategy around security is air gap, barbed wire, a Faraday cage, because that's basically all that they have. And you know, so then we're going to say arm guards. Those are basically, in a nutshell, what systems you have at your disposal. But of course, this is a point counterpoint. This is where the fun starts, because I'm going to kind of show you all the various ways in which you can defeat these systems using different tools. So let's start with doors and locks. I'm not going to demo for you full on how to pick a lock, but I'll just give you a sense of what you need to do. I just got this new lock picking kit from this company, Sparrow, out of Baltimore. They're super cool. So the types of attacks, physical security attacks, attack tools, say lock picks. And so the way that, a traditional lock kind of works, it has a variety of pins. Let me show you here. You put a key in and you basically hit the pins up to what's called the tranche, and then when you have every pin at the right spot, the door opens, right? But the key is, and so if you can see here, this is like a lock. Let me see. You can see here. Oops. Yeah. So if you look here, it's not going to focus in. Yeah. Maybe.
There we go.
That's cool.
There we go.
Okay. So yeah, it's good enough. I mean, it's okay. The point is this: like, if it's not going to zoom, there's a lock, and you can see the pins that are exposed. Now, this is the key that goes into it. Now, the pins are of various heights, and this key is specifically etched to hit the pins in a uniform way. So when you put it in like that, the pins go, and then it opens, right? But then with the lock picking kit, the key here is you have a thing called a tension tool. You see here. So your tension tool goes in the bottom of the lock, and you're gonna be kind of turning this thing here. See the tension tool. Boop boop. You put it in, and as you're turning, you're gonna use a variety of different rakes, and they come in different kind of shapes and styles. And the point is to basically get in and find that one pin. And so as you have your little thing in here, you put your rake in, and you kind of just find the little pin, and you go whoop, 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 boom. That's it. So that's basically all there is to picking locks. You can get a little kit from Sparrow. Like I said, I recommend this company. There's a lot of good ones. They give you like the rakes, the locks, all the things. So lock picks are easy to repeat. And then there's also another fun thing. So cards, RFID cards, very easily defeated. There's a couple ways. Some of you may have heard of the Flipper Zero. That's like the all-in-one hacking device. I highly recommend it. Before the Flipper Zero, there's this thing called the iCopy X. It just looks like this. This used to be a $10,000 device, and then during Operation Cottonmouth, that was exposed by Snowden, there was the United States program around physical attack tools, and they kind of reverse engineered it, and they made this thing for $300. So what's crazy about it is you can clone key cards, badges, credit cards. Let me show you. I actually submitted a bounty to Capital One last week because turns out their credit cards don't have any security on them, and nobody in the security team somehow knew this. So unbelievable. But here's an example. Here's a Capital One card. Let's see if you can actually see it. Yep. So if you just press this button that says auto copy, it'll quickly make a copy like that. You can just look at the bar here, and it basically, wait a second, oops. Yeah, see, look how fast that is. Done. So now when you have a copy, you can literally make the copy on a shitty card that looks like this, and actually one into Publix. And I use this not to the counter. Imagine you hand in this shitty card like, hey, but you go up to the terminal and you literally just write the card as a perfect copy of this. It's that simple. So that can apply to hotel cards. This is actually a skeleton key to the JW Marriott that they haven't fixed. So I'll give you another example of how easy it is to clone. You just do, again, auto copy like that. It copies the sucker. So the thing is, the basic defense against this is you want some kind of encryption. And it's not asking that much. So it makes a copy. Then you can use it'll tell you exactly the type of cards that you need when you write. So if you hit write, it's going to tell you need M14B, which is this type. Even if it's not the right card, it's going to tell you. So if you write, literally, this is a perfect key to the JW Marriott, all 484 rooms. You can go live there right now if you want. But badge cloners, and you only have to be within, because it uses NFC, you only have to be within typically like 3 feet. So when I do these hotel gigs at the Marriott, a lot of times I'll go up to the maid and I'll be like, "Can you let me in, man? Like, I left my shit in there." And then I'll hold my little thing up there and I'll get her skeleton key. So it's kind of crazy how easy it is. So badge readers or card skimmers, also card cloners kind of fit in that category. Card skimmers falls in the same category. You've seen those. That's what they put at ATMs, scumbags. But nowadays, card cloners are way faster. You don't need to write under another card with a magnetic stripe. You can literally, oh yeah, that even reminds me. So there's an even cooler device that I use for convenience. It's what is it? It's this thing called a key seat. The key seat is this. It's basically allows you to store 4 different RFID credentials here. And you can copy anything from your hotel key card to your fob to your condo to the fob in here. And then and it takes just like 6 seconds. So if you do this, I'm just going to show you. You hold the little button down, it's going to blink, and it's going to go kind of ape escape here real fast. Let me see here. Yeah, see, it starts blinking really fast. Boom, then it makes a copy. So then when you have that, you can then write the copy to a blank little PC, or key card. And the way you do that, instead of holding it down, you just press it 6 times. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to do a similar sort of action. I'm going to go, let's do this. Press it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom. And then it just makes a perfect copy of that. So that's cool. Key seat's like $50. Another one of those things that was like several thousand declassified during Operation Cottonmouth, and now it's readily available. Then you have these cool things, these thermoscopic sensors. So these are basically what allow you to see heat signatures in the environment. So you can see people. You can actually read the fingerprints off of like keypads. This is where it's really helpful. So you want to see the last combination that somebody entered, what's called a one-time passcode, you can use that. That's why you should be rotating your key values every day and not using the same 4-digit pin for everything. So it's for pins and stuff. Those are easy to get. They're like $20 on Amazon. Then you've got your own little spy cameras, right? So you have spy cameras, but also there's these optical cameras that can go underneath the doors and like look at people. This is KBG shit. Optical, and those are also cheap and readily available. There's also that's cool. And then speaking of doors, there's also these like this. You don't even need anything fancy, but there's this thing called so there's door jams, right? But if you ever want to go to a hotel and test this out, put a ballpoint pen in the side of the door, slam the door. It'll smash the pen, but the door will not close. So it's a way to give you persistent access back into it. But they actually have door jams. In fact, a lot of lazy people pop a door with a badge reader, and it defeats the whole purpose. I could go into detail there, but door jams another way to defeat. And then you've got all these fun computer-based tools like USB devices, and there's a bunch. This company called Hack5, they've been around since 2002. They make some cool shit. So they started out with this thing called the USB rubber ducky. So there's a hot plug attack. So you plug this into a computer. It's also got USB-C now, so it's versatile. You can have it execute any number of commands and code. So it can exfiltrate data, steal password hashes, drop payload on there. Like literally, it runs in this thing called ducky-lang, which is basically a modified version of Bash. Thing kicks ass. So this is the rubber ducky. But then my favorite tool, which came out a few years later, it's called the Bash Bunny. It looks similar, except it's got this little switch on the side with two different modes. They have an arming mode, and then you can run two different particular types of payloads depending on the slot, and you can store memory. So back in 2018, I wrote this tool that I gave to Hack5 called 30 Seconds to Pwned, based off the band 30 Seconds to Mars. And within 37 seconds on a Windows computer, it would grab the password. This is even a locked computer. Grab the password hash, exfiltrate the documents like to PDF files to a command and control server, create a reverse tunnel, VPN, all this stuff. With vulnerable versions of Windows, it would Hasselhoff you. So it'd put like a screensaver and invert it so you look like a fool. But this actually emulates different devices. So even if you block USB in the BIOS, this can take on the personality of a serial device and it can still run. So like literally to defend against this, you basically need to put epoxy over your USB ports. And I'll talk about defense here in this next section, but this thing's cool. Bash Bunny. This company makes tools and they name them after animals, which is also really, really funny and cute. And then that's USB. Then you've got two different types of network attack tools. You've got like network taps that kind of just sit passively and listen to traffic. But you can also, in the process, if you have unencrypted communications like HTTP, you can pick up kind of traffic. So this is called the plunder bug. It's a simple tap. You put one Ethernet port in between like a computer or the network, and then you put another that goes into the wall, captures all the traffic. You can use a tool called WireGuard to analyze all the protocols from layer 2 up to 7. So that's pretty cool. And then you get more into the like what's called network. I like to call it lady in the middle attacks because been man's world for a long time. So you have network, and these are like actively like adversarial. So network lady in the middle devices. And so what these do is this. You put these in between typically user workstation, and it'll not only capture the traffic, but you can start to do aggressive things like modify the domain name services. Instead of them going to Google, you can send them to Goggle, which you control, and you completely phish them, right? You can also create like an outbound VPN to an AWS server, and then you connect to that AWS server and you reverse tunnel in. You have direct access to their computer as well as the entire network, which is crazy. And then you can do even remote access from outside of the hotel. So I'll give you an example. This thing called a LAN turtle. This thing's crazy. It's got you plug this into like a switch. You plug this into USB power or the device. It's got a 4G radio. So you can connect to this thing from anywhere outside of the building. And then this thing will run, like it'll dump your credentials. It'll start Metasploit. It can modify DNS. It can change even user accounts. This is the LAN turtle. This thing's crazy. And then kind of similar but different is this thing called the packet squirrel. This is a lady in the middle. Like I said, there's a port that can go in between the computer and the actual switch, or in between a switch and a router, and it captures the traffic, but it also has a USB little drive, and it can store logs, collect loot, passwords, hashes, sites visited, any number of things, and it just runs off micro USB, which is super dope. And then there is another one of these devices. This is called the Key Croc. This is called the Landshark. There's a Key Croc, but this one is similar. You only need USB power. Doesn't need to plug into a computer. But if you plug this into a machine or a switch, it immediately starts to enumerate the whole network. So it goes and runs Nmap, and it runs mass scan, and it starts to map the whole network. And then it has local storage. It doesn't have a Wi-Fi radio, but once you unplug it, literally give it 15 minutes, it'll have the entire map of the network, ports open, all this kind of crazy ass stuff, which is wild. And then just on the networking front, I thought this is really cool. This is a 5-port, 100 meg switch, probably the smallest you've ever seen, micro power. So like if you have multiple devices, you just hook this bad boy up, plug it into the smallest switch. Oh, I was just thinking of Zoolander. Where are the files? It's in the anyway. It's in the computer. So it's crazy. So those are kind of network lady in the middle attacks, and yeah. Also, there's a couple other little categories. There are what are called keyloggers, right? So keyloggers they can be software, but they can be physical. So the one tool I don't have here, it's called the key croc, and you plug a keyboard in between the key croc, captures everything. So anything you're typing completely defeats having strong passwords. That's why you need multi-factor. You need something like a YubiKey that's phish resistant, but keyloggers are crazy. Software ones are typically detected by your next-gen AV and your EDR, so those aren't handy. But if you have physical access again and you have a keylogger, it's pretty much game over. And then the last kind of area here is these things called rogue access points. So one common example is called the Wi-Fi pineapple, and this thing is so damn powerful that it will broadcast a stronger SSID than most other APs. And you can do this thing called a disassociation attack. So you force all the clients to disconnect, then they'll try to reconnect to your access point. And when they do, you essentially can then hijack their entire traffic. You can decrypt their VPN. You can send them to any site. The defense against it is having some kind of rogue AP detection on your network, but it's really hard to prevent, because the thing with SSIDs, server-side identifiers with Wi-Fi, if you have the same name, the one that takes precedence is the one with the stronger signal. So unless you've got really fucking crazy, access points, the Wi-Fi pineapple is going to pretty much win. There is also, if you go to DEF CON, there's this guy who walked around with this pineapple killer. It was a backpack full of these jammers, and he would detect all this. Anyway, it's really funny. So he was able to spot these rogue access points because all these damn punks, be coming and trying to get people to connect. So that gives you a sense of the attack tools. So putting it all together, let's talk about how do we actually defend against this? What does defense in depth look like for these various types of attacks on these various types of systems? Because physical security systems are supposed to provide security, but when they're attacked, how do we defend against those things that are supposed to give us security, but they don't? So, physical defense, defense in depth. Now I'm going to demo for you the first thing, which is a Faraday cage or a Faraday bag. So if I ever become a DJ, I'm going to be called DJ Faraday. Let me show you why. So I've been through Darkness company out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and they make various sizes and shapes of Faraday guys, and it just looks like this. So in the middle, there's a mesh of metal. It's aluminum, copper, and anything you put in this bag, it kills all RFID. So earlier I was trying to play Freak on a Leash, and hold on, I think it disconnected from the device. Yeah. So this Faraday bag, this is the only way to truly kill signals. It's the only way to go off the grid for FiMi to fail, to kill Bluetooth, whatever. So if I'm playing Freak on a Leash, let me show you. Sounds good, right? But here's DJ Faraday coming at you. You put it in here. Guys ready? All right, see, you can cut it up. Dead. And then eventually it just completely kills it. This is my DJ name. Stone Cold Stunner. Oh, it's still there. It's still. Anyway, so just take my word for it. It's something happened in this bag. Actually, it's kind of weaker than it used to be. That's the funny thing about it.
Well, it does physically degrade over time.
Well, that's probably what happened.
So the Faraday.
Okay, cool. All of it. Times I cannot feel my feet. But yeah, so basically, this is how you got the grade. Backup going.
Oh no! What?
All right, there you go. So that's my new. It's the most obnoxious DJ ever. He just cuts out your signal with the Faraday bag. But this thing will protect you against a variety of types of physical attacks. Also, we did determine thickness of the material does matter. So if you have a Faraday wallet or RFID shielding wallet, highly recommend it, because people can't be cloning your credit cards and your shit. Then there's also these malicious cable detectors. So this company OMG, they make literally an iPhone cable that you plug in, but it's got a keylogger, a Wi-Fi radio. I don't have one with me, but it's crazy. It'll run payloads, but there is a device they make too called the malicious cable detector that'll detect that this is happening. So but the thing is, it's not real time. It's like if you think there's a cable that's malicious, you can plug it into the detector and it'll tell you, but it's not going to help you if it's already on the machine. So how do you protect against USB attacks? Oops, you gotta literally put epoxy over your USB ports. So not just turning off them in the BIOS, because like I said, the Bash Bunny can run in a serial device. So it still is going to bypass the BIOS, which restricts USB ports. So the solution is to use something like a Chromebook that has very minimal USB functionality. I mean, or have an ARM bodyguard that looks like Rick Ross and scare the shit out of everyone. That's the only other way. And then, what about these rogue access points? Well, you can do rogue Wi-Fi detection with your firewall. It'll tell you if there's a rogue access point insofar as somebody's broadcasting an SSE that's not part of what's called DHCP guarding. But beyond that, you need a device to just detect this. So like the Wi-Fi Pineapple is crazy, but there's some new to DEF CON. Look up it's like basically called the Pineapple Buster. So if you have the ability to pick up the signals, because there's 400 or so RFID signals out there, which is crazy. And then for badges and access, we have to model physical security after digital and use this thing called just-in time, or JIT credentials, right? So simple use of this is you go to a hotel, the maids, rather than giving them persistent lifetime access with their key, which is what most people do, give them access for the day they're there, then expire it, have them re-authenticate, make it one-time use even, like the way that we look about this in the digital world is like if somebody wants to request credentials, like a service account, they can request them for one time, like from AWS. The next time it re-authenticates. So these credentials aren't static. This is in the physical world. This is also key. Don't give people persistent lifetime access to secure areas. Use JIT. And then on the area of specifically access control cards, there's this new technology called DeskFire. So hotels, a lot of them use this thing called MyFair, which is very weak, not barely any encryption, or like Capital One uses no encryption. But DeskFire adds a basic layer of authorization on here. And so if you've ever gone to a hotel and you're on floor 10 and you try to use your card and you try to go to 8 and it doesn't let you, that's DeskFire. It's basic, but it's helpful. And I tell people with hotels or any place, it's beneficial if you're going to do a break-in to start at the top floor. And there's 2 reasons. One, because of fire safety, it's way easier to go down than up. You can shoot down the stairwell. It's way harder to just get, to the top from the bottom. But also psychologically, people will look at you from a position of power. This is why executive dicks are always on the top floor. So psychologically, we have a disposition to think that you're important, you're not sketchy. So if you're going to do this and you want to take advantage of these sort of psychological faux pas, this is how you do it. But DeskFire is basically basic authentication and authorization. Makes it harder. Doesn't make it, obviously you can just piggyback and say, hey dude, will you let me up to floor 12? Or you can wait for somebody to come from floor, like it's not impossible, right? But the point is, it's kind of slow them down. That's the only goal with security, make them move on to lower hanging conflicts. And then then around that, if you're a hotel or anyone, you need to have some kind of central like access control system. So this should tie into like your directory service, for example. So these shouldn't be disparate systems. This should be kind of continuous. So if you're using Active Directory or Okta, and you're going to provide physical access to buildings through an app like KeyC, like not the other KeyC, I said KISC, like provide access that's based off role-based access control, like we talked about in week 1. Say, Susie Q gets access to this particular facility, but not this one. and it's based off our group membership in Okta, and we're going to centralize it. So again, physical and digital are converging, and so you should treat it as such. And then I would say that probably the biggest blunder, even with all these things in place, the biggest blind spot with these companies is they don't have central logging and monitoring, and they're not providing real-time alerting, right? So they don't even know until way after the fact that there's a security incident happening in the physical world. I mean, I could give you a lot of examples. I could tell you stuff that happened with the White House and the Secret Service, but needless to say, all these logs should be going to your SIM, your security incident event management system, along with all your other logs, your telemetry, because you want to build risk profiles on people. You want to say if there's an insider threat, let's start looking at the central logging. What are the other indicators here? Okay, this person went in here, then they went on the network, they started plugging in a sketchy ass device, they've been looking at GitHub, downloading source code. This will give us an aggregate profile and allow us to kind of build confidence that we have, malicious activity. Or even just like in a hotel, if someone is walking and they go past the security camera, and then next thing you know, they're in a secure area, there's a lot of different ways that you can start to stitch this together, but most people are terrible at physical security, and especially they don't have logging, or they're not analyzing it with a SIM. They're not doing correlation and all that. So, and then on that note, and then just personally, tomorrow I'm actually starting a gig at the Marriott as their same security fellow doing physical security testing, since I've been doing it independently. I'm going to be in there helping them improve their posture, test a lot of these controls, make sure they push the program forward, also building their security program more broadly, not just physical. But yeah, that's physical security. There's all kinds of different rabbit holes to go down, but I love this stuff. So if you want to talk more, hit me up. That's all I have. Any questions, comments, concerns? Is anyone out there?
Yeah, I wanted to add, since we're talking about this is straight up Justin, the security. I don't know I know you mentioned like a few softwares or companies, but have you heard of Latch? It's like the new.
Yep.
Okay.
I know Latch. I almost worked there. They're pretty cool. Yeah. I remember Latch. They
Okay.
do for condos and stuff. They provide kind of like different kinds of access control.
Is that what the hotels? No, the hotels use the far away stuff, right?
Yeah, some of them do use Latch, but you'll often see like Latch provides like a central platform for all of this, which is helpful, So like they give you the logs, they give you the access control. They're cool. I think they're still a startup, but yeah, good call out. I almost forgot about Latch, but they're decent. They're not for individuals though. They're for companies, because they're like enterprise kind of focused.
Yeah, and you talked about like housekeeping having like a minimum a time in the unit, the hotel room, what have you, and it should expire just for security purposes. But I believe that's what like the app does. I'm sure there are other competitive apps, that compare to Latch, right?
Yeah, but that's exactly right. It provides you the JIT, provides you Deathfire, all in one kind of physical security. Definitely a good investment. So there are people trying to tackle this problem. It's just you're only as secure as your weakest link. And man, if you want to see insecurity, just go down to the JW Marriott. You can basically press a button to go to any hotel, and it just says, go to this elevator or any room floor, go to this area. I could tell you some horror stories, but there's no security. You can walk through the front desk. Their cards use a shitty, like, weakest MyFair using this thing called ES, which was data encryption standard. This was from the 70s. This was before advanced encryption standard. So like literally, and the JW Marriott has some of the most important politicians, diplomats, that just are there, and like you can literally break into the room and kill these motherfuckers. But that's what I'm saying. This is why Marriott hired me, to help them know that this is possible. Yeah, gentlemen.
Hey, buddy, one quick question for you. First and foremost, great presentation, homie. Really appreciate it. One quick question going back to the subject of when you were talking about card cloning. It was a Discover card you were referring to, correct?
No,
or was
Capital One, but
it was Capital One? Okay.
There's a bunch of companies on my shit list, but this is the first one that I tested. But there's also Venmo is vulnerable. Ben, PayPal. There's probably more. I only tested what I had in my wallet,
Yeah.
like, most of them just have basic security, right? And you have to, basic encryption, in an ideal scenario, I'll give an example. Like, there's this company called Found that's like a business startup. They have encryption, but they use modern security so that this iCopy X won't be able to clone it in a reasonable amount of time. So you can then an offline attack with a PC and crack it. But the point is, you're jumping through hoops, right? You're not going to allow some petty scumbag who's like a waiter to go back, to the restaurant and start cloning people's cards, which is exactly what is happening, because like the thing is with these cards, doesn't matter if there's $100,000 limit on it, you can basically create your own credit line and be your own Federal Reserve. You just like make a copy. So you can see the potential for abuse there, which is crazy.
Yeah, so that's where my question is, because I'm definitely not very well versed in different cryptographic patterns used for credit cards specifically, but in general, wouldn't most of those cards be using EMV? And so like even if you can clone the card itself for transactions, there's going to be some form of unique code that's generated as far as actually being able to utilize it. Like RFID, I understand you can clone it till the cows come home, and you can do that an unlimited amount of times. But for a credit card that's using EMV, even if you had a clone of the card itself, when you attempt to make a transaction, wouldn't there be some form of restriction there?
You think so? That actually only applies to chip and pin, which is fascinating. So when you do chip and pin, it does the validation. So you put chip and pin, it does the cryptographic signature. You're right, it does the tokenization. But the danger is when you do tap, like Apple Pay, it's all NFC, which it doesn't actually. And if it has the same key, so it does send encryption to the terminal, but you're using the same exact key. And so if it's not using any, like basically the issue is before the tokenization, the payment gateway, you're essentially just like handing a card, and if there's no encryption through NFC, because it's using basically shitty Bluetooth, more or less to that frequency, there's no key exchange. And this is what Capital One is susceptible to, which is crazy. So even though they have a chip and pin, you go up to the NFC, you tap and go, even with this like clone card, and it works, which is unbelievable.
Interesting. Okay, that's really interesting, because you would think that tap payment would be even more secure than the actual physical chip and pin. But wow, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that answers my question.
It's unbelievable. Because normally, like, you have a cryptographic seed, like you say, EMV makes it so that you can't just duplicate transactions. Each one is unique. It uses a signing key. That's why chip and pin came along to replace the swipe, right? Because swipe is just literally, you can read it in plain text. NFC, when implemented properly, uses authentication and key exchange, but for some reason, there's absolutely no security on this at all. There's none. And so, like I said, Capital One, I don't know how they didn't know this with a team of 800 some security people, and the fact that they had a breach in 2019. But yeah, man, seeing is believing. I'll probably make another video and just show the deal, but there's a bunch of them. Like I said, Venmo, it's just straight up laziness, so.
Sure. Yeah, that's wild, man. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for the response there. That makes that a lot more clear.
Thanks, bro. Good question. And the world's so insecure. It's kind of unbelievable. The fact that anything even functions is because of mutually assured destruction, the doctrine being now in cyberspace, just to know how fragile everything is, it make people piss themselves. I mean, I pissed during this talk alone.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join though, bro. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think anyone else, Jennifer, I'll hit you up in Bethesda. All right. Well,
all right, buddy. Thanks so much again, man. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good rest of the day.
Next week, we're going to be talking about network security. It's going to be fun. All right. Till then, peace.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.